Welcome to the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. I'm Melisa Liberman, a fellow IC and business coach. On this podcast, I teach you to become a consistently booked independent consultant without becoming a pushy salesperson or working 24/7. If I can do it, you can too. Listen on to find out how.
Do you ever wonder what it takes to become a sought-after consultant? One of those consultants that has inbound leads coming into their inbox. One of those consultants who has inquiries coming in with ideal clients asking, how do I work with you? How do I engage you? How can I get on your client roster so I have access to your expertise? What is the difference between what you're doing right now and those consultants who are able to generate inbound leads? Well, today on this episode, I'm going to share with you what that difference is so that you can start to build out your own process, your own mindset, your own system for becoming sought after. Welcome to episode 274 of the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. This is Melisa Liberman, and today that's what we're talking about, how to become sought after, to make lead generation easier through inbound leads. It's an amazing place to get to in your business, and it's so possible for you, and that's what we're going to talk about here today on this episode. Before we do, I'll share with you a quick personal update. It's the summertime here in Colorado, and we are in full swing with like a very good mix this summer of business focus, working on some incredibly exciting projects that I'll be rolling out later this year, and working with a handful of clients over the summer in my mastermind and with a few private clients. But for the most part, I wanted to create a lot of spaciousness. And I hope you can do something like this in your business too, or that you are doing this in your business where you're able to ramp things up and down depending on what you want to be doing personally and professionally. For me right now, what I want to be doing personally and professionally is having more space. So I've cut back quite significantly on my client roster. And that gives me so much space to focus on the clients that I've got right now, and also to work on these exciting projects that, again, I'll tell you about those later in the year. So exciting to have that spacious time Monday, Tuesday, Thursday primarily. And the other days I'm still working, but it's on very much on these projects that are very flexible. And that gives me time to spend with my family. We're headed this weekend. 2 of the 3 kids and I are headed to Utah to a water polo tournament. We had a water polo tournament a couple of weeks ago here in Colorado Springs. It's called Where's the Air, which I think is such a fun name for this water polo tournament because we're at such high altitude, there's less air. So it's kind of a fun name for a water polo tournament. But it was really exciting to see the kids and all the work they've done and how it's paying off, and intermixed with a lot of swim meets, so many swim meets. I think there's a swim meet every single weekend, but it's all so much fun to see them put in a lot of hard work and to reap the rewards. My youngest, who is turning 11 this week on Thursday, the day this episode goes live, he turns 11. And he broke 4 team records in one day or on one weekend at a swim meet. And that was really fun to watch him do that too. Okay, so that is what I'm up to. That's what my schedule looks like this summer. A lot of flexibility, a lot of working on projects, a lot of focus time for the clients that are on my roster, and a lot of space to do all of these family things because my oldest will be a sophomore in high school, and I feel like he's going to be graduating so quickly. Makes me sad thinking about it already. But let's get back to the point here, which is becoming sought after as an independent consultant. And we want to set this system up for you so that you're able to make life easier for yourself, to become more selective about the type of work you're taking on, to be able to price at whatever you want to price your work at. and to be able to set up a schedule like I was just talking about. I change my schedule every quarter-ish or so, and you can have this too. You can have the ability to drive how you work, when you work, for how much you work, why you work, all of these things. And a lot of it rests on the ability to generate inbound demand. So let's talk about the agenda and then we'll dive right into the content. We'll start off with a companion resource that goes with this episode. Then I will share with you the 3 components of an inbound lead system. So we'll talk about what are those 3 components that you need to put in place to start generating inbound leads for yourself. And I'll give you examples so that this is very tangible and implementable. And then after I give you the 3 components, I'm going to drill into each one of them so that you know exactly what they look like, what obstacles to anticipate. You might already be hitting some of them, and then examples of how to put it into action. And then we'll wrap up the episode with next steps. All right, my friend. The companion resource for today's episode is my lead generation effectiveness scorecard. If you haven't yet taken this or you haven't taken it in a while, I highly recommend you go to pipelinescorecard.com. It walks you through a diagnostic to rate you on elements of your lead generation system and help you to surface the areas of priority for you to focus on so that you can generate higher quality leads, so that you can have predictability and repeatable with your pipeline. So go take that. It's at pipelinescorecard.com. That will help you to know how to focus and prioritize the work that you're doing on your lead generation system and overall your ability to create demand for your consulting services and hit your revenue goals. Okay, let's start off and talk about the 3 components of an inbound lead system. They're very simple. We're going to dive into each one of these, but I want to share with you the components first. The first is that you have an inbound foundation. I'll tell you what that means here in a minute. The second is that you have a sought after mindset. Tell you what that looks like. And then thirdly, you have an inbound lead mechanism built out. So that's the high level. Let's talk about each one of these. Let's drill into each one of these, starting with the inbound foundation. All right. The inbound foundation. What this looks like is that you have a clear specialization. What do you want to be known for? What do you want to be sought after for? What's your unique approach to what you do? There are likely hundreds of consultants who do what you do. There might be thousands of consultants who do what you do. What is your unique approach? What is your combination of things that combine together create a clear and unique differentiated specialization? Ask yourself these questions. I'll give you an example of what this looks like here in a minute, but I think it's really important to talk about the blockers. And I find that there are 2 common blockers to having this type of inbound foundation built out. To have this inbound foundation built out or defined or even committed to by you. And those blockers are thinking that it's not good enough, that whatever you've come up with is not good enough, and that you're worried about leaving opportunity on the table from, other work that is not specific to the specialization that you've defined. When you think about these blockers, for you, what does this look like? Let's start with not good enough. I did this for a really long time. I can't recall the name of the book. I'm not going to guess. There's a book out there that talks about the blue ocean, right? You're looking for a blue ocean, a blue part of the ocean, like where it's not been touched, where it's unique, where there's not a ton of traffic, right? All the cargo ships going by, like the blue ocean, and that's what you're looking for. And I might have butchered that concept a little bit from the book, but the point here is that when I read that book and it talked about this blue ocean that I needed to find, it felt impossible to me. I'm like, I do not know what I could possibly create or think of that's unique that no one else has done before. And it got me stuck for a really long time. When I was consulting full time as an independent consultant, of course, when I was focused purely on consulting, helping startups scale, and being a fractional COO, it felt like so many people knew how to do that, know how to do that. What could I possibly do? What could I possibly offer that was unique within that space? And it created a lot of resistance for me because I felt like there's nothing I could do to make what I do unique. What unlocked it for me is that I never figured out, some unique aspect of operational consulting or of being a fractional COO. But what I did figure out is that I had a unique background. I had a unique perspective. I had a unique set of experiences that other people didn't have. I had a unique expertise in tech startups specifically. I started adding together all the different combinations of experience, of past engagements I had worked on when I was in corporate, that I had led, work I had sold, and looking at all of that experience and pulling together what is good. What makes an organization effective when it comes to operations? What are the required elements to help an organization get to the point where they can scale? Those were the questions I started answering for myself that started unlocking this ability to specialize because I was able to overcome that blocker of this will never be good enough. I will never find a blue ocean. I realize I'm not looking for a blue ocean. That's a great concept. Obviously, I can't even exactly remember how to describe it to you as we're talking about this. Like that felt really hard to me. So, and rather than just continuously pursuing this because someone told me to in a book, I realized, you know what? This is a blocker. This is creating so much resistance. I'm going to start taking a bunch of levers and attributes and adding them together in a unique way that helps me figure out what is my specialization. And that's what happened. I was able to dial into, look at, and consult for organizations that had 25 or fewer people, but that were growing quickly to 100 to 200 in the tech space as a startup. So they had to deal with their PE firms and their VC firms and their other investors. The CEOs were typically, they're entrepreneurs, so they're a little bit crazy. There's so many unique aspects of that type of work that it's not just about the work itself, but it's about those unique considerations. And so for you, as you think about what is it that you want to be your specialization, you don't have to think just about the industry or the size of the company. So often in working with consultants, they'll tell me, well, I'm going to specialize on this industry and this size of a company from 10 million to 500 million, and all of these attributes that really don't mean anything at the end of the day, right? But if you can start looking at what are the unique attributes, like the one I just shared with you, a company that's 25 people or less as a tech startup that have plans to grow to 200 in the next year and that are owned by a PE firm or VC firms or other external investors. There are a lot of uniquenesses around how to manage those investors, how to get them on board with your vision, how to keep them from derailing what you're trying to do. That's unique. Those are unique. That's a unique situation that they're in. You can also talk about the stage of a business, right? Or a function. For me, for example, when I was going through this, it was about that stage where we're ready to quadruple the team in less than a year and all of the pain points that come with that operationally. For others, it might be, you're looking at organizations who've just gone through an M&A event, for example. For you, think about what makes you unique and putting together. I like to think about it as a Rubik's Cube. You're just looking at how do I merge and mix and get myself to the place where all of these pieces fit together in a way that feels really locked in, as if you've solved the Rubik's Cube and all the colors are on the right panel. So give yourself that a space to think through this, to not worry about, is this quote unquote good enough? Did you find your blue ocean? But more so, what attributes are you choosing to specialize in and why, and what makes them unique? And what about those attributes? In what way do you have a unique approach? Now let's look at this on the other end of the spectrum, which is leaving opportunity on the table. This is also a resistance that I often hear when I say, when we work on specialization, I don't want to leave opportunity on the table. You've heard me talk about this on the podcast before, but think about this as you having a front-facing menu, like In-N-Out Burger. You're building a reputation around something. You can change. I think I've changed my focus 3 or 4 times in the last 14 years. You can always change. It's not a problem. But in order to create an inbound lead situation for yourself where you're generating inbound demand, you want to be really clear about what that client-facing reputation is that you want to build for yourself. Just like In-N-Out, right? You go to In-N-Out, if you have an In-N-Out near you, they just came to Colorado maybe in the last couple of years. They basically have hamburger, cheeseburger, fries, and milkshakes. That's it. You don't go there for a taco. You go there for a hamburger. However, you also can ask them, will you make me a grilled cheese? It turns out they will. You can also ask them, do you have t-shirts to sell? It turns out they do. So for you, just like In-N-Out, you build a reputation around what it is you want to be known for, what you want to be sought after for. That doesn't mean that potential clients can't come to you for other things and you can't consider whether or not you want to take them on for that type of work. But you're going to make your life a lot easier when you have a clear specialization. And when you get comfortable with, you don't have to leave. It doesn't mean that you are leaving opportunity on the table when you do that. And you might choose to leave opportunity on the table. What a great thing, right? We talk about excess demand on this podcast. Build excess demand for yourself. Leaving opportunity on the table isn't necessarily a bad thing. So you want to build a relationship with, it's ideal to generate excess demand where you can pick and choose who you want to take on as a client, where you get to decide what type of work you take on, what you charge for it, how you deliver it. And you do that by creating this inbound demand and having a clear, understandable set of problems that you solve, set of clients types that you work for in a specific industry, at a specific stage in time, whatever that looks like for you. If you have resistance around specializing, work through this. It's a mental block. And you could give us a lot of reasons, but Melissa, this reason or that reason, it's not a good plan for me to specialize. That's fear. That's scarcity thinking. When you get to the place where you are specialized, it will set the foundation for you to generate inbound leads and make your life a lot easier. All right, let me give you one last example, and then we'll move on to the next component. And that example is this. So I just shared with you an example for me, how I specialize. But now let's talk about another consultant who has launched their business in the last year or so and specialized down to what I'll call 3 specific aspects. Again, it doesn't have to be based on size or number of employees or amount of revenue or industry. It doesn't have to be those things. You want to figure out what are the unique aspects that formulate your own specialization. Okay, so this particular consultant has combined a common function, sales optimization. He works as a fractional CRO, Chief Revenue Officer. He also comes in and does strategy projects to assess the state of the sales team and the sales process for startup companies and their PE firms, and helps those organizations to understand where their opportunities for improvement are from a people perspective, from a process perspective, from a technology perspective. So it's a function, sales optimization, for a specific industry or type of, which is tech software companies. This individual is working with those tech software companies, similar to what I did. But specifically, being the customer here is the PE firm. They're bringing him in. They're into their portfolio companies. That's a unique scenario, right? Because there's a relationship between the PE firms and their portfolio companies and the management teams running the portfolio companies. That is a unique scenario. It brings a unique set of circumstances. It brings a unique set of challenges. He's an expert on these things. And his unique approach, his methodology that he's built, which in his case is an 8-part sales effectiveness tool that he leverages. It helps him get his foot in the door. It helps him start conversations. It helps him to have a common set of things to talk about all of the time, whether he's speaking or writing. It helps him to have a very clear point of view and to deliver the work that he sells. When he knows, he goes in and every time assesses these 8 areas of an organization to identify their areas of opportunity and what's working well, what's not working well. So that gives you another idea. I wanted to share with you, when we think about this specialization, that it's not usually those components, it's not usually those aspects of a specialization that come to our mind, that it can be such a broader way to look at this of what your specialization will be. Okay, now let's move on to the second component of your inbound lead process, and that is your sought after mindset. Listen, and this is the second component, I put it here as a second component for a very specific reason. Because if you don't have a sought after mindset, if you don't think of yourself as someone who should be sought after, who is sought after, if you don't think about yourself that way, other people aren't. How can you expect other people to think of you in a way that you aren't willing to think of or give yourself the credit for? You go first. So the sought after mindset is something that's incredibly important. And sometimes we think, well, I either have it or I don't. No, you cultivate it. You work on it. You build it. You might be really weak in this area right now. So many of us have imposter syndrome as we go into this type of an expert business as a solo consultant where everything is on us, right? This is your job. This is part of your job to cultivate, to build up, to strengthen, to continuously maintain and grow your sought after mindset. It's you thinking of yourself as an expert. There's not a flag anywhere that designates you as an expert. You get to decide. A lot of times we think that there's some kind of badge that we're waiting for, that some other organization will bestow upon us. No, you decide you're an expert. You decide you're a specialist. You decide you're a difference maker. You decide you're someone who adds value. You decide you're in demand. You decide you're a peer to your ideal client. You decide that it's exclusive, that it's exclusive to work with you. These are some of the elements of a sought after mindset. And oftentimes we get it backwards. We think we need to land a certain set of logos in order to feel like we're sought after. We think we need to have a certain amount of revenue on our books. We think that we need to have a certain amount of clients under our belts, or our pipeline needs to look a certain way before we have permission to think of ourselves or to designate ourselves as a sought after consultant. And I'll tell you right now, that is a moving target. If you're waiting on all those external things before you decide that you're someone who is a sought after expert, that you're a sought after for what you do, when you're waiting for all those external metrics, it's a moving target and one that will be elusive for you. Now you might say to me, well, Melissa, it's not realistic to think of myself as sought after. I've only had a handful of clients under my belt, or I'm brand new at this, or I've had a drought and my pipeline is dry and I don't even have any clients right now. Okay. Well, that doesn't mean that you're not sought after. It means that you don't have any clients in your pipeline right now. It means that likely no one even knows that you do what you do. No one knows that you have the expertise that you have. No one knows that you can create this types of outcomes that you can create. It has nothing to do with whether you're good enough to be sought after or not, whether you've reached the level of being sought after or not. It has to do with the fact that you haven't even put yourself in a position to be sought after. So you want to do this first. You want to think of yourself as sought after in order to become sought after. Not think of yourself 10 years from now after you get all of these accolades and logos and engagements under your belt. And by the way, your pipeline might be empty at that point. Sometimes it ebbs and flows. You don't have to wait for all of those things to happen to start thinking of yourself as sought after. Because I can promise you, in working with so many consultants, including the one that comes to my mind so often, she was in business for, I think, 25 years when we started working together, had incredible imposter syndrome, had built an impressive boutique consultancy, did absolutely no lead generation. All of her work was inbound. Did not think of herself as sought after. Did not think of herself as an expert. Was constantly worried about, will I be found out as a fraud? I am telling you right now, you do not want to wait for some arbitrary period of time, for some arbitrary amount of engagements, for some arbitrary pipeline value to decide that you're sought after. You think of yourself as sought after in order for those things to happen, in order for the inbound leads to come to you, in order for clients that might surprise you to reach out and say, I need to talk with you about what you do. We need to just determine how to engage you. That's what you want. And it relies on you thinking of yourself as someone who's sought after. Because when you think of yourself as someone who's sought after, you're willing to do different things to make yourself visible. When you think of yourself as someone who's sought after, you're willing to go to an industry event and come across in a much different way than if you think of yourself as just an independent consultant in the corner. It's incredibly important to cultivate this sought after mindset. And the way that sounds is, I'm an expert, I'm a peer, I'm well known in the industry, I'm becoming well known in the industry, I make a difference, I'm in demand. Ideal clients want to work with me. They just need to know that I'm here and available and understand better what I do. Those are the types of ways that you would be thinking and the ways you would be setting your priorities and the ways that you would be spending your CEO thinking time, building out this sought after mindset. Okay, let's talk about the third component, and that's that you have an inbound lead mechanism. So we've talked about, you've got the inbound foundation. That's your specialization. What do you want to be known for? What do you want to be sought after for? Then we've got the sought after mindset. So you see yourself as someone who's sought after, not expecting other people to prove that to you. And then thirdly, we've got this inbound lead mechanism. And this mechanism comes down to 4 simple things. They're truly simple. They may not be easy and may be challenging to stay consistent, but they're very simple. And they are these 4 things. You need a way to be visible. You need a way to add people that you're meeting to your audience. You need a way to build a direct relationship with people in your audience. And you need a way to stay top of mind. So let's go down through each one of those, and then I'll give you a few examples of what this looks like. A way to be visible, attending events, speaking, writing, doing interviews. That's your way to be visible. Getting introductions, being a member of an association. You want to have a way to be visible. Now remember, we've got our foundation, that's your specialization. we've got our mindset. So we're working, those two things are in place, and now we are putting in place a way to be visible. You want to put in place a way to add people to your ideal. You want to put in place a way to add your ideal client to your audience. We talked a little bit ago about that there's diagnostics that you can leverage for this. I shared with you that 8-part tool that the consultant I was giving you the example of has built out relative to what does great look like when you think about a sales organization for a PE run or owned company, startup company, a diagnostic build off of that. Another consultant has built an AI checklist that does a lot of the uncovering of challenges for her ideal clients so that they better understand the problems that they're facing. And then the next step, which is a way to build a relationship, a direct relationship for her, goes from that AI checklist into AI powered checklist, I should say, into a strategy call with her, like taking those results from this AI powered checklist that she's built out and then talking with her directly about those results. That's an example of a way to build a direct relationship. So you're building the audience, and then you're now building one-on-one relationships with each of the people in your audience because they've raised their hand. They've come to you. You're just doing the work to say, listen, I'm visible. This is what I do. These are concepts related to my specialization. And then they raise their hand. They add themselves to your audience. They then raise their hand to build a direct relationship with you because they want a strategy call with you to go over a diagnostic, for example, or they want to have a assessment call with you to understand why they're having the challenges they're having in their organization. And then you want a way to stay top of mind for those individuals who you've either had a direct had a call with of some sort and that didn't move forward to an opportunity, or the people in your audience who haven't yet raised their hand for one of those direct relationship steps. You want a way to stay top of mind. So let me give you 3 examples of what this looks like. The first example is a consultant who has a podcast. So she has a podcast. Sometimes she interviews her ideal clients on that podcast. So it's a great way to start relationships with them directly, but also she's visible. She's visible with ideal clients in her space because she's got this podcast that she releases a couple of times a month. And on that podcast, she's offering some form of a diagnostic that either goes with the topic that she's talking about that week or interviewing someone about that week. She's got a few of those that she rotates depending on, what's most relevant to the podcast episode. And then she offers, once they've taken that diagnostic, she offers to them a review of the diagnostic, a strategy review of the diagnostic. So that turns them from being someone in her audience because they've done the diagnostic to someone she's got a direct relationship with now because they're doing that one-on-one review. And then she's leveraging that podcast to stay top of mind. So the podcast is doing double duty, right? She's visible and it's a way for her to stay top of mind. The second example, a consultant who speaks. He does a lot of speaking 2 or 3 times a quarter, offers a related tool in those speaking opportunities, in the times where he's giving talks, he'll offer a related tool. So that adds them to his audience. They opt into it, giving him their name and email address. Like a white paper, for example, that's related to the speaking topic is one example of one of those tools that he has. And then from there, once they've opted into the tool, he offers a strategy call. Again, this is not him texting them. It's him offering this as part of his ongoing process that's automated in the sense of once they've downloaded the tool, then they're then he's offering the strategy call in emails after they've downloaded the tool. And then he's got a newsletter that he sends out 1 or 2 times a month that stays top of mind, helps him to stay top of mind. It's not a pitch, it's adding value. It's sharing concepts, it's sharing scenarios and case studies for his specialization. Remember, we've got the specialization that this is all about. And then the third example is a consultant who goes to a lot of events. And in these events, they're just doing what I'll call unattached networking. This is not about, let me talk to 12 people and turn them into leads. Let me talk to 12 people and set follow-on meetings even. This is truly about being visible at industry events where all the players are and doing unattached networking at those. And by unattached, I mean not worried about the outcome. It's about maintaining relationships, being visible, creating a little buzz even around what they're doing, who's working with them, and what kinds of impact they're having for different organizations. And then ultimately generating inbound inquiries from there. It can be so simple. And those 3 examples are different examples, right? They're not all the same. They leverage each of those consultants' skill set. They leverage each of those consultants' desire. How do they want to be running their business? What do they want to be doing? What do they not want to be doing? And also what resonates most with their ideal clients. So those are 3 examples of inbound lead mechanisms, at least as much detail as I can share, because they are real consultants and I don't want to give away their secret sauce. But hopefully that gives you a sense of what this could look like for you when you think about what your inbound lead mechanism is comprised of. All right, my friend, as we wrap up today's episode, I want to encourage you to look at these 3 components for yourself, to think about what is your specialization. Get clear on the specialization. Understand where you've got resistance to or blockers around that specialization, and let's tackle them. You don't want to be continuing to marinate in this isn't good enough, or I don't want to leave opportunity on the table, but instead go all in on what do you truly want to be sought after for. And then at the same time, you want to be building and cultivating your sought after mindset. This is an ongoing practice for yourself. This is not a one and done. This is an ongoing practice that you want to incorporate the way you think about yourself, your identity as an independent consultant, and what you do and who you do it for, and why you're sought after for that type of work. And then finally, you want to build out your mechanism, those 4 areas that we just talked about. So I encourage you to go put this into action. And in order to help you do that, go take the Lead Gen Effectiveness Scorecard at pipelinescorecard.com. And I will see you again next week. Take care.
Thanks for joining me this week on the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. If you liked today's episode, I have 3 quick next steps for you. First, click subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to make sure you don't miss future episodes. Next, leave me a review in your podcast app so other independent consultants can find and benefit too. And finally, to put the ideas from today's episode into action, head over to melisaliberman.com for the show notes and more resources to help you grow your consulting practice from your first few projects into a full-fledged business. See you next week.